On today's DNVR Broncos podcast, we're going to be breaking down what Courtland Sutton's future with the Broncos looks like. Could he get a $60 million extension? There's a reason I threw that number out there. Could he be traded, or could he just show up for training camp with no contract, or maybe even a hold in? We're going to break down all the options and which ones are most likely. Also, we're going to talk about the biggest takeaways from Broncos offseason program. It all starts right now. Will court be in session come July 23rd? We're going to break it down on the DNVR Broncos podcast. So much to get into today, but first, got to welcome you in to the Toyota Lounge here inside the DNVR Bar, which is, of course, powered by your Front Range Toyota stores. We've got Super Bowl 50 champ Todd Davis, Henry Chisholm, and Zach Stevens rocking and rolling with you today. We also got you here behind the camera. Fellas, how we doing on this terrific Tuesday?
Feeling good. I feel like we should bring the conversation to the people and ask their opinion.
Which one are we? Are we talking about sour cream? We talking about rice? We talking about size of burritos?
First, we got to start with like burrito size. I thought there was one tortilla and one tortilla only, and if you went any smaller, it was to make tacos. What do you mean? There's only a taco and if you go in the store today, there's a taco burrito, and then a taco size tortilla, and there's a burrito size tortilla.
That is true.
Like inside a King Soopers, like a grocery store?
Yeah. I mean, if you make them at home, like you can make whatever size you want.
Taco tortillas, though, where they're way too big for one taco. So we call that a kid-sized burrito.
No, it's just a big taco.
No, but there is this tortilla out there that you can buy that's extra big, and it's kind of like for burritos, and that's what chains use.
But bigger than a normal burrito size. Yes.
But like, there's also like just a regular tortilla, but that's still not that big for a burrito. It's kind of more like for a bean burrito only.
Oh, or a kid-sized burrito.
Bean burrito.
Todd refuses to believe the kid-sized burrito is
I've never heard of it before.
Should I call it a big wrap taco?
I'm from California. Like, we're basically still Mexico. Like, San Diego still should be part of Mexico. Like, great
Probably.
Mexican food. I've never even one time seen somebody get it.
It's a newer thing for sure, though.
Okay.
You're saying in the last 5 years.
Okay.
You in California are missing one thing when it comes to Mexican food. You're missing illegal Pete's.
Yes.
And illegal Pete's is maybe the founder of a kid-sized burrito. And I appreciate illegal Pete's. So we're getting illegal. We're having our big training camp meeting after this. Actually, little... what's it called? Programming note here. We're doing two shows today, 2 live shows. One right now, which you're tuning into. We're doing one right after this show. We're starting 15 minutes after this show ends. So if you're sticking around, or if you're watching this show, stick around for that next one. We got 2 shows. And then after that, we're doing our training camp meeting to get prepared for training camp, see what we're going to do, put that plan together. So we're having illegal Pete's for lunch, and I didn't want to be wasteful. So I put my order in for a kid-sized burrito, and I knew I was going to get so much shit. I just didn't know it was going to come from Todd about 30 seconds after I put my order in.
No, it's all good. I had never heard of it, but I mean, if the kid size is your size, it is what it is.
Only for burritos, Todd. No. It's only my size for burritos.
You guys taking it the wrong way.
There are some other weird things, too, though. So, like, you didn't like the idea of, if we say it's a 2-hour meeting, burrito gets there at the start of the meeting.
Yep.
You couldn't put it in the fridge after the meeting because that's too long.
Well, no. I would put it in a fridge. I would not put it in our company fridge. And should I get into the details of that?
Well,
I guess I can.
Whoever did it deserves it.
Yeah, it's very true. Yesterday was fridge cleaning out day here at the office, and someone said that there was a poke bowl, which is raw fish or raw tuna, I think, that had been in there since April. That's 3 months now.
Yeah.
It is a 3-month-old raw fish that has been sitting in the fridge. I'm not putting my half burrito in a fridge that probably, I can only imagine what that smells like.
Does it help that they found that out because they were literally cleaning the fridge?
It's 3 months
it should be
late,
clean,
right?
Yeah, but I mean, if it should be clean now.
You think they Clorox wiped it?
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Oh,
I mean,
you
it
think?
needed
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, those gross
I bet
business
they
people
did.
up there, they need it.
Also,
Yeah.
I think I know who it might be.
Put him on blast.
I'm not gonna
No,
put him
you
on
can't say that. And
I
then,
can't because he writes our checks. So.
No, who? Spano?
Yup. He's the one. He
Spano.
was leading
Well, I
Pokeball
would
about
definitely
like 3
not
months
put
ago.
him on blast.
No, he
for that.
was
Also, Spano doesn't. Spano loves his food too much to not eat it.
That's a good
I don't
point.
think he'd let it go to waste.
That's good protein.
You think he's getting a full-size burrito?
That's true. That is
Wait,
definitely.
Real quick, while we're roasting Zach, we got to roast Hank, who thinks that there's better Mexican food in Montana
You're crazy.
than anywhere else.
Yeah, no, but
No.
see, the thing
What-
is, we
what
can't
would
have,
make you
we
think
can't
that?
we can't have this as a topic of discussion when you ban me from the chat and delete the message.
Yeah. Yes,
No,
you
but
can.
I'm saying like
No.
argue your point. Like what would
Right.
make you think that?
I'm not a huge fan of the authentic. Obviously, we have to start there, and so
I don't know. I think the
You
argument's
just
over.
killed yourself.
Yeah, I think you
just killed yourself.
Yeah, I think it's done. I think we're good.
If you could have Mexican food or like Texas Mexican food, Tex-Mex, which one do you choose?
Mexican food.
You like that better?
Even if you
Yeah.
want
Really?
Tex-Mex, it still would not be Montana that specializes in
In-
Tex-Mex.
No,
It
no,
has to be
no,
called
no. This is separate. This is
Montana
separate.
Mex.
Exactly, but this is separate. And I would say I like the Tex-Mex better than the actual Mexican
course
food.
you would.
Montana is even more Texy than Texas is, and so it's even better. Just like cheese on everything.
Montana
It's like,
is more
I
Texas
think
than
it's over.
Texas is Texas.
well, they're more okay. Well, Texas is more Mexican than Montana is. Does that make it more clear?
Nope. I
If
think,
on the scale of
Wow.
Texas
I think
to
you're just digging
Mexican.
in. I think you're just
On the
digging
whole
a deeper
Tex-Mex,
hole.
Texas to Mexican, Texas halfway between Montana and real Mexican.
Yeah,
a spectrum.
No,
Yeah.
No, Texas is more. Texas is more Mexican, right? You're saying
Yeah.
Montana's more Mexican?
No. Texas way more Mexican.
Oh, okay. Not like that. I'm just
Well, no,
not the way you're putting it. I'm
But
saying
food
that
wise.
it's more
This
it's
conversation.
more authentic. It's more authentic because the border's there. So
the thing is, like-
Tex-Mex makes sense because you have food
Oh,
from Texas
boy.
and you have food from Mexico,
Yeah.
and they blend across the border. Montana is bordered by a whole bunch of nothing, so the food cannot be good.
It has Wyoming,
What is Canada food?
What? Yeah.
poutine.
Okay, I'll give you that Montana might have better Canadian food than
They take all our
than-
stuff.
So Montana's poutine?
That's they did do that.
You know
one.
what
gotta give 'em
poutine
that.
is, Todd?
It's like pasta.
Yeah. Nobody wants.
They
that.
say pasta
It's
instead of
very
pasta.
true.
That's
And
a
then
weird place up
Wyoming.
there.
What's your brother in Wyoming? What do you guys?
I don't have a
sharing
brother in Wyoming.
together?
I don't go to Wyoming. I hate Wyoming. See, that's what people don't understand. Montana. I've never been to one of the Dakotas. I'm closer to the Washington or to the ocean than I am to the Dakotas. I'm up in a different little corner up there. But the Mexican food is really, really good. They just put a whole bunch of cheddar cheese on everything. It's a bunch of refried beans. It's really,
boy.
really good.
Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah,
good.
It's a good point.
I
You
think I
don't like
understand.
Mexican food.
Say what you want, but it's awesome. Like it's more of like a Mexican theme than it is like it's not authentic.
I feel like
again.
he's just eating grilled cheese and refried beans, and he
Oh,
thinks
of
it's
course,
Mexican.
yeah.
beans on it.
Tortilla, you have 2 pieces of white bread right there. Eating
Dips it in salsa and calls it Mexican food.
Not even salsa, just tomato juice.
That is true. There's a lot of like very fruity salsas that I'm not a fan of.
Todd, you mentioned California Mexican food. You know what a
The
California
best.
burrito is?
Yeah.
With the French fries. Right?
Is that what you?
That's
No.
what in Colorado, at least, that's what they call a California
Oh,
burrito.
okay,
Instead
okay.
of rice, right?
or maybe both.
Oh,
Yeah, so it has rice, beans, asada, and like the pico de gallo. A lot of it, like that's kind of what they do.
then
that's
French
just called-
fries?
Yeah, and French fries inside. But it's basically the same burrito, just fries in there.
so it'd be California Mex then. If there's Tex-Mex, California Mex.
I think it's Cali food.
Cali.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't
yeah.
think they call it California.
What a
Yeah.
way to start this show.
What do you think of just like melting cheddar cheese on tortilla chips? It's awesome, right?
Yes,
Yeah, I used
it
to
is
do
delicious.
Expand that to like a whole cuisine. Like that, think of that as like the starting point to the whole like style of food, and you've got Montana Mexican food.
No, I think
Yeah.
yeah.
no.
Well, no, but I mean, you
That's
expand
bad.
from there. You throw some beef in, you throw some beans in, you do, you know.
So you're
It's
saying
awesome.
it's not Mexican cheese like the different
No,
flavors. It's
cheddar.
just straight cheddar.
It's not even like
so
cojita.
good.
It's not even like
No.
queso fresco. It's just literally
It's
like
just
I had
Cheddar
never seen
cheese.
cotija until I came here.
He's probably not even using.
Probably not even shredded. It's just a block of cheese.
I love our cheese.
Probably not even using tortilla chips. Just using like Lay's chips or something.
Yeah.
For that.
No.
Just blasphemy.
There are places. There's one bar in Missoula that'll do that, like nachos with the potato chips.
Oh my goodness. Well, Hank, let's see if you have just as bad takes on everything else as you do about delicious Mexican food. And let's talk about Courtland Sutton's future with the Broncos. And do you have those videos pulled up? All right, he does. So before we dive into it, let's take a big step back. Where do you think the beginning of this Courtland Sutton drama starts? How far back do we need to go to get to the very beginning?
Honestly, for me, I think I'm not speaking for him.
Yeah.
But what would frustrate me and feel like I need to be paid more and kind of show how the organization views me is all the trade rumors year after year.
Oh.
I think when you're on the trading block year after year and then you go out and have kind of your best year and are really, really instrumental in the team's success, not a lot of success that they had, but most of the success they had, you played a big part in. And you're constantly on the trade block, I think that is where, the rift begins. And I kind of feel like I need more security if I'm going to be here and be a big piece of this puzzle. I don't want to be constantly feel like I'm going to be traded every time the trade deadline comes around.
Henry, would you go back even further?
Yeah, I'd say when you sign the contract. I think, first of all, when you give people a contract during the season, generally you get a bit of a discount just because you avoid the uncertainty of what could happen the rest of the way. And when you have a non-guaranteed year at the end, I would imagine there's maybe not like an understanding that you're going to renegotiate before the end of the deal, but there's probably at least a conversation about that likely being the case. And that hasn't been reported. It's not like when Patrick Mahomes signs the 10-year deal, it's like both teams or both sides really like agreed. As new contracts come, as like new information gets brought up, we'll keep like renegotiating this so it's fair. Like we're not going to screw you over. And I wouldn't be surprised if when you had that contract talk, there was some conversation about, hey, this right now would be the time that you start talking about building an extension into that. And this is all just like speculation, but it's been a thing that's kind of been on my mind because this would be, just given the way that the contract is structured, this would be when you would probably extend him again.
Wait, so if I understand right, you're saying right when he agreed to that contract and got that new contract, they also had an understanding in place that now would be a time to get an extension?
An understanding makes it like, that's very like firm and very like, we will do this, but more so I would imagine that there was some sort of conversation like, hey, this is, let's get through these. It was 2 years now. Let's get through these 2 years to when it kind of like the guarantees die out, and then we can kind of revisit it, or at least have that conversation. And a lot of things change, and Sean Payton's here now, and it definitely wasn't like, I would imagine, a firm promise. And this is all just off the top of my head, but it's something that I've kind of been thinking is that you probably, when you sign that deal, think that this is about the time when you get more security.
It's a really interesting mindset, and that's not something I thought of, but we actually have someone on the show that would know if this is something that kind of happens, because I personally wouldn't have thought that. I thought when you sign a new contract, especially with, I think Courtland had $36 million in guaranteed money, you probably felt pretty good. I wouldn't have thought that drama could have potentially started then. Todd, when teams agree to a new contract, is there some chatter about already looking ahead to when they're going to renegotiate another deal?
I would say no. And I feel like if there was any conversations had, it's on his agent to get that in writing. Because just talking across the table is just talk at that point. And I think that's why you see players have options like Russell Wilson did. If you're going to trade me, I get to choose if I'm going to let that option go, or even injury clauses in their contract. Like everything needs to be in writing. If there's any potential to negotiate within this deal, and we've talked about it up front, they usually put it in writing because it's too easy for the team to do what they're doing now. If they had talked about it and just kind of close the door, like, yeah, I know what we said 3 years ago, but I'm not going to really talk about that right now. So for that reason, I don't know if it's happening too much, and if it does happen, it's usually in writing. Both teams agree to it.
Yeah, I'm curious I think so. The conversation usually, like, I'm sure they kind of mapped out what the plan is. Like, it was a 4-year deal, right? Yep. So we're thinking 4 years, like,
4
because
years, 60.
this is how things kind of line up. At this point, you're going to be like 29. We think that this is the right amount of time. Like, you kind of talk through that whole timeline. I would imagine when you figure those things out. Again, having not been in that room, I'm not really sure. But at the very least, I would imagine that from Courtland's side, this has kind of been the time you circle, even if it's just the agent in the back of his head saying like, hey, this is when the guarantees run out. I don't have to, I've got other clients. I don't need to worry about Courtland Sutton until the spring of 2024. But in the spring of 2024, there might be things that I need to get done.
I think if that was a conversation, then I think you structure the contract differently.
Yeah.
Because right now, unfortunately, all the power's in the Broncos' hands.
Yeah.
He doesn't have much guaranteed money to really move the needle for the Broncos. So if it was like, okay, we'll take this contract now that we know we want to re-up in 3 years, you have to structure it differently so that you have more power and you have more say-so in the meeting rooms. Because right now, you know, it's your way or the Broncos' way, and right now the Broncos have the power, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with you. Like, they Courtland didn't, it's not like the Broncos just gave him this extension. Courtland agreed to it, and Courtland got a ton of money and is still getting a lot of money, but he just obviously wants a little more right now.
And so with that last year, it basically obviously works as a team option because there's no guarantees, so they just get to choose him. Choose whether they want to keep him or cut him, or you can obviously trade him too. So that is a year that only benefits the Broncos because Court gets nothing out of that. If Court's worth $12 million and that's worth $13 million, they say, nope, you're gone. If he's worth $15 million and that's worth $13 million, they say, oh, we got you and we saved $2 million versus what you would got. So Court doesn't win at all. So I would imagine in exchange for including that year, and maybe this isn't like a direct negotiation, but in exchange for including that year on the end of the contract, Court did get something else bumped up. Like his average salary is probably higher because of that, just because the Broncos kind of won with that one. So he probably won somewhere else, or the signing bonus, or however that may be.
Yeah, I mean, $35 million guaranteed.
Yeah, it's all a give and a take.
That's certainly a win. But also, it's not like Court's contract was so different than any other NFL contract. No, this is pretty much how every NFL contract is. Todd, I believe yours was 3 years, and I think the first 2 years were fully guaranteed. That third year, not guaranteed. And what did the Broncos do? They didn't honor that third year because they didn't have to, because it wasn't in... because it was built like that. That's pretty. 3-year deals, 2 years are guaranteed. 2-year deals, 1 year's guaranteed. 4-year deals, 3 years guaranteed, so on and so forth. That's why the Kirk Cousins contract when he signed with the Vikings was so unique, is it was fully guaranteed. Everything was guaranteed there. So it was a pretty normal contract. But I do like that perspective, Henry. But let's continue down this timeline, and just so we know exactly where we are with Courtland Sutton and the Broncos right here. But first, I got to give a shout out to our friends over at Red Hawk Roofing. We're talking about like maybe it's not the best contracts, things like that in football. With Red Hawk Roofing, you don't have to worry about anything like that because they are huge DNVR supporters and have been part of the DNVR family for a long time, meaning you can trust them. You know exactly what you're going to get with them. And in the roofing business, that's such a key thing to know is peace of mind. But they've also got other benefits for you, like quality materials, decades of experience, quick response time. They've got Colorado's best estimators and contractors, and free no-obligation roof and property inspections, and free in-depth photo reports for all inspections. And hail season is here. In fact, the hail that we had a month ago here in part of Denver was the worst hailstorm since 2017. So if you need to get your roof checked, you think it's damaged or was damaged, give our friends over at Red Hawk Roofing a call at 720-771-8921 and tell them that DNVR sent you. Or you can go to redhawkroofing.com. Supporting local teams and businesses is what we do here at DNVR, and Red Hawk Roofing is one of them. So if you need a new roof for your home or business, give them a call at 720-8921 and tell them that DNVR sent you, or check them out at redhawkroofing.com.
Shout out to our friends over at Toyota. You know, this podcast is forever broadcasted in the Toyota Lounge, and we love our Toyota stores, especially the Front Range Toyota stores. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR, and they definitely have you covered. As I said before, I'm looking at cars for my son, and time again, I keep getting brought to the Toyotas. Extremely reliable, extremely safe. I think that they're great cars for kids, adults. They also have 17 models with available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, like the Epic 4Runner. You guys know you love to hike in Colorado. Colorado is a great state to be outdoors in, and the 4Runner will definitely have you covered. You could sleep in the back of the bed if you want to. Definitely keep you covered. You can visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. We have the AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Courtland Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East, and Stevenson Toyota West. Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL and the official vehicle of DNVR.
Got a lot of people tuning in right now. If you're tuning in on Twitter, jump over to YouTube where you can leave a comment. You can see the comment section. You can also hit us with the thumbs up. So if you're watching on YouTube, hit us with the thumbs up. We really appreciate it. Helps us out a lot. Okay, so Todd, let's go to where you pointed to. Last year, I think, is when really last offseason is when the trade rumors really started floating. And they started floating right when Sean took over. I mean, it was February, and it was Jerry Jeudy, and it was Courtland Sutton, and maybe a little Tim Patrick, but really Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton's. Their names were floating around, flying around. Teams were linked to them. The Patriots really wanted Courtland Sutton. So there was steam. I mean, or there was smoke, which means there was fire. And the Broncos seemingly were interested in moving either or both Jerry Jeudy or Courtland Sutton last year, just for the right price. They won a first-round pick for Jerry Jeudy. They won a second-round pick for Courtland Sutton, and teams looked around and just laughed at those prices and said, we're not doing either of those. So the Broncos held on to him. It picked up around the trade deadline. Maybe Courtland Sutton, maybe Jerry Jeudy. Held on to both of those guys. And then again, the rumors started floating around again this offseason. We see the Broncos move on from Jerry Jeudy. And Todd, I think we really got to see Courtland Sutton's frustration from all of this at the end of this past season. I think just a couple of days after the Broncos season ended, Courtland Sutton posted what really seemed like a farewell message to Broncos Country. It was a really nice montage of photos of him being a Bronco, and it pretty much read as like, thank you, Broncos Country. If I'm not back, well, I've really enjoyed you guys. And it was like, wait, he's under contract for 2 more years right now. What is this goodbye message here? And my guess, just a total guess, is it was a combination of, over the past year, there's been trade rumors swirling around me. They just treated my best friend on the team, Russell Wilson, like they did in a way where I know they're going to get rid of him. So it means they might be blowing up the team. And I think that's where we really saw the frustration from his end come out.
Yeah, I think that was, if they trade me, then at least I said my piece. At least I got, to thank everybody that had been supporting me while I was here. But it's frustrating. I think nobody, even people, living everyday lives that aren't playing professional football, nobody wants to be at risk of losing your job every time you go out there. No. Or you hear that your boss is talking to upper management, trying to get you fired every single week. You're like, I can't deal with this, So it's a tough position to be in, and I think you understand, if you take a step back and look at his situation, you understand why he's frustrated and why you wouldn't want to constantly have to wonder about your future.
Yeah, and you've already gotten rid of Russ and Justin and Kareem, and Josie's contract expired, but you didn't bring him back. So
he actually posted that message before all of that happened.
That's true.
That was in January, and then Henry, the next step is exactly what you're talking about. It's Russ gone.
Yeah.
It's Justin gone. It's Kareem gone. It's Josie gone, and then it's Jerry Jeudy finally traded. And once Jerry was traded, after all of those other moves that you pointed to, Henry, then Courtland went to social media again and posted the Will Smith standing in an empty room on that very famous show.
I'm not even going to help you out.
Very famous show.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yes, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Thanks for helping me out, even though you said you weren't going to. And it's Will Smith standing in an empty room, and it was just once again like Courtland Sutton just... That message was either frustration, confusion. He's the only one kind of left. Does he even want to be here anymore? He left it open to interpretation, which I think he was open for. So Jerry Jeudy's traded, and then Jerry Jeudy is paid. Jerry Jeudy gets a 3-year extension worth $52.5 million, $41 million guaranteed. He's making $17.5 million per year, where Courtland's sitting there at $15.2 million. And he probably looks at the time that he and Jerry were on the team together and says, overall, I was a better player. Yeah, 2 years ago, Jerry had a couple more yards than me, but last year I had more yards, more touchdowns, more catches. And overall, I think Court's stats combined are more than Jerry's. And he says, if he's getting paid, I want to get paid. Then he continues to see this wide receiver market blow up. Then the next thing where we really can tell that it's not just social media frustration, that he's actually pissed about what's going on. The Broncos offseason program starts. Courtland Sutton's not there. A report from NFL Network drops that exact same day saying Courtland Sutton is not attending Broncos offseason program as he looks for a new contract, and that's when it became official. So this wasn't just like his agent calling him a day before offseason training program starts and says, hey, what do you think about, should we sit out and want a new contract? No, this was frustration building, not just this entire offseason, but Todd, as you said, for over a year now, and maybe Henry, even to what you said, multiple years now. And the offseason goes, he does not show up to anything for the offseason program, OTAs. And then, of course, he tells us on this show that he was going to show up for mandatory minicamp. He does that. And then we hear from Courtland Sutton for the first time really talk in depth about what's going on with his contract situation. And here's what Courtland said just last week about what's going on with the contract situation in a very open and honest manner.
Yeah, I don't know who talked to them, but I mean, it's obviously it's something that has been conversed about, and you know, my team and I have been in contact with you know, the guys upstairs to handle all of that stuff, and you know, we kind of were going back and forth trying to figure out the best way to, you know, kind of find a middle ground for the situation. And you know, we are at a stalemate in a sense, but you know, I have confidence and faith that the right thing will be done. Yeah, I don't know who talked to them.
So stalemate going on between the Broncos. You can tell that he's not happy, and he ends by saying, Henry, we hope the right thing is going to be done. Then later in that press conference, maybe the biggest thing that came out of there was almost a threat to the Broncos when he was asked, well, what happens what's your future if this thing doesn't get resolved before training camp? Will you show up? And Courtland said, we'll see. Then right after that, the next day, we talked to Sean Payton, and Sean was asked, Courtland said, we'll see if this isn't resolved. How big of a deal is this? How important is he to the team? And here's what Sean's response was. This was the final thing we heard from either Sean or Court regarding this heading into training camp.
I think this is important, and Courtland and I met this morning for quite a while. We have a good relationship. He's important to what we're doing, and yeah, and he didn't have to visit with the media. I told him, it's up to you if you want to do it, and so to his credit, he did, and so yeah, I would say he's important, and I think he knows that.
Do you think Courtland knows that?
I don't know.
I think Sean probably talked to him he said he talked to Courtland last week for quite a while in the morning before practice. And I'm sure Sean said, you're really important to us. You're our number one receiver. We're going to feature you in this offense. And I'm sure Sean told him he's important. It's clear Courtland Sutton doesn't need to be told he's important. He wants to be paid like he's important. So I think Courtland's looking for the money, and Sean is trying to give him the value through words.
Yes. I feel like the most important way you show your love for me or my importance on the football field is to pay me. And I think that's what he's asking for in this situation. Words are great. Cash is better. I think that's what he's looking for.
Yeah.
And so
Court's going to be back.
What?
Court's going to be back.
Court's going to be back.
Yeah.
In what capacity?
The
That's
normal
kind of
one.
where things stand right now. And there's, I think, 3 options. 2 of them involve Court being back. But let's break these down. I have some numbers to throw your guys' way, and there's backing and reasoning behind these numbers. But first, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Vestibule, where we might be talking about this situation in the middle of the season for Baron Browning. Are the Broncos going to pay Baron Browning? He could get a contract in the middle of this season, just like Courtland did with his last deal. If Baron goes out and has, 5 sacks in the first 8 games, Broncos might want to lock him up right around that their bye week, get him under contract for a long time. And if he has a big season this year, he is going to get a big deal. And if you were involved with Vestibule, you can invest in Baron Browning's future, which is, it's a really cool idea. Their slogan is redefining fandom, where not only can you be a fan of the Broncos, not only can you be a fan of players, but you can invest in players' futures. We actually buy a stake of their future earnings. And it's a really cool idea. And if you want to get in, scan the QR code on our screen, which will help you download the Vestibule app, or you can go to the App Store and download the Vestibule app. And that's the way that you buy stocks and IPO of Baron Browning. It's live right now. Shares available for purchase, but they're limited. So if you want to get in, go to the App Store, download the Vestibule app, and get in. Right now, they have Baron Browning as an athlete. They're also adding other ones, but it's really cool that the very first athlete they have is very own Denver Bronco, Baron Browning. So head to the App Store, download the Vestibule app, where Baron Browning's IPO is live right now and available for purchase.
Also, drink some Coors Lights. We've got some in front of us. I haven't had a Coors Light in a minute. Maybe tonight's the night. I'm going to be here. I'm doing the Rockies watch along with Susie tonight. Yeah, playing the Dodgers. I went to the game last night, too, and it's kind of crazy to see Ohtani play. Like, it didn't even, cross my mind until I was sitting there. I was like, oh, I forgot Ohtani's playing. And, you see him up there, and he, swings the bat like he's some, action hero and, holds the pose at the end. It's like, what the hell is going on? But no, it was...
was he placing any bets in the dugout or anything?
Probably. That was the other thing I decided is, he absolutely was the one doing all that. Those stories do not add up. Shohei Ohtani was the one who was making all those. We're going to find out about that eventually. But yeah, we're going to be here tonight for the watch along. I think we start at 8:30 or something.
Late one.
Yes, but then I have to run to the airport afterwards, so that's why it kind of fit my schedule.
Are you here tomorrow?
I'm picking somebody up.
Okay.
Yes.
Somebody. It's very secretive.
It's Lexi.
It's not like Shohei.
About to go, you know what I'm saying? I don't know.
No. Which is why the timing kind of worked out perfectly. But yeah, so that'll be fun. Probably drinking some Coors Lights and watching the Rockies beat the Dodgers. Which
There
is
we
gonna be
go.
awesome. Ohtani... It's just so frustrating because every time it's 2 strikes. They're going to get him this time. And it's RBI double. Oh, double again. Oh, and it sucks. They walked him, I guess, the other time. Coors Light is awesome. Great way to chill, as we always say. And make the most out of your times that you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Okay, so help me out here, guys. I have... 3 options for what could happen with Courtland Sutton before training camp or during training camp. The Broncos could trade him. The Broncos could give him a new deal. Or nothing could happen. And in that, I guess there's a couple things. One, he's a true holdout. He's a hold-in, meaning he shows up, he's in the building, he's at practice, but he doesn't actually practice. And that's his way of not getting fined, but also holding out in a sense. That's called a hold-in. That's kind of a new thing. And then he could also, nothing could happen, and everything could just be normal. He could practice and just play on the current deal. Am I missing any potential options?
I don't even think they're going to... I don't think there's a chance that he holds out. I don't think there's a chance they trade him. I think he's going to be there for day one of practice, and there's a 10 to 15% chance that either they add some incentives or they... add some small guarantees, but there won't be any big changes.
No massive new extension.
No.
Just same deal, maybe bump.
Yep.
But you think that the 80-85% is mostly just exact
and even
same
that
deal?
seems low. I think there's
shows up.
it honestly should probably be 95% chance that this is all nothing.
All nothing, he shows up and
Yep.
isn't even a hold in.
No. He definitely won't do
plays
that.
like normal.
He definitely won't do that. Yeah.
So you really think that it's one option?
I mean, it's over to me. I think it was over when we went to mandatory minicamp. You might as well say, I don't know, keep the negotiations going. We'll use the baseball analogy since we're talking baseball. I think it's if you're down by 10 runs in the bottom of the ninth, might as well keep swinging the bat. Like it doesn't really matter, but it is over.
You think so, Todd?
I don't know if it's over. I do feel like they're going to slow play it as much as they can, which will probably force him to be at training camp and practice. But I don't know if it's over completely.
Is that the leading one, though, is nothing happens?
Yeah, I would say so. Just because of the position that the stance that they've already taken, you know? I'm not saying they're going to do anything different. It's just continuing what they have done.
Right, 100%. And I agree with both of you guys. I think nothing happens. In a way, where Courtland's back on the team this year. But what's going to be interesting is even if nothing happens, it's still not going to be over because maybe the temperature will drop on this a lot for the rest of the season. But Courtland Sutton has one more year under this same exact deal next year with no guarantees. This year he has $2 million in guarantees. Next year he has no guarantees at all. So this, I have to imagine, January 8th or right when the season ends, it's only going to spike right back up, and maybe that's when a trade demand is made if the Broncos don't give him a new contract. I don't know where things would go, but this thing is so far from over. But I do agree with you that the temperature on this is going to drop a lot and everything's going to be fine for this year, but then it's going to spike right back up. So I think we're so far away from this thing truly being over. Henry, you mentioned like maybe the other 5% is the Broncos give him some incentives or give him some more guarantees. I don't even think that happens. And the reason I don't think that happens, the reason I don't think a new contract extension happens for Courtland is that sets, in the Broncos' mind, that would set a very dangerous precedent to where anytime a player sees the market go up, they would come to the team and ask for more money. And the team would say, no, we don't do that. And then they point to this and say, no, you did it with Courtland Sutton. You gave him more money, so now we want that. And I have to imagine, and I don't blame any player, if the Broncos did that with Courtland, and I'm a player that my deal, my guarantees are up, or the market has gone up $2 million since I signed my last contract, I would immediately go to George Payton and Sean Payton and say, okay, I'd like the same thing. And if they do that to one guy, it does open the door and it sets a precedent there.
I would say that they've already set the precedent that they don't care about their best players. Their captains, like their leadership, like when you get rid of Justin, you get rid of Russ, you got rid of Kareem last year, you didn't bring back Josie. I guess that's the majority of the group. I mean, those are four of your like key identity pieces of who you are as a football team. You send the message to the entire team that we don't care who you are. Like, this is just a business, so goodbye if we need to say goodbye. And so I think that by going back and if you were to add some guarantees or add an incentive or something, it would send the message that, hey, yeah, maybe we will do these sorts of things, and maybe that opens a can of worms. But it also kind of corrects that message that you sent this offseason by kind of cutting off the head of the team from like a leadership standpoint.
But I think that's what the Broncos wanted to do. I don't think they view what happened this past 6 months as a bad thing.
No,
so I don't think
obviously they wanted to do it. They
correct
did it.
that.
But I think that if I'm Court sitting there, I'm like, wait, this is what's happening. Like, again, it's the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air meme where everybody's gone and you're just like, oh, that's not like a healthy environment to be living in. And it's like a business, like football's cutthroat. We all know it. But I think it would just send a nice message, not just to Court, but to the entire locker room to be like, we want to help you out. Like, there is some wiggle room here. Like, we're all on the same team. Like, we care about you guys, because I would imagine some of that kind of gets lost when you get rid of all those guys. And on top of that, you haven't given an extension to any of the current players.
But doesn't it seem like the culture right now is better than it was last year?
Yeah.
After all of this stuff? So do they need to help with that culture right now by just giving money when they don't have to?
I mean, we've only seen them on a practice field. And so, like, it's tough to say for sure. Like, I couldn't tell you I don't know, what's an example? Jonathan Cooper, in the back of his mind, is he thinking, I'd love to be here, but I feel like there's nothing I can do to stick here just because they have these young guys behind me, because they haven't extended anybody who was here before they got here, because they're getting rid of all these guys. Like, I can't tell you whether or not Jonathan Cooper in the back of his mind is thinking, there's just it feels like it's going to be impossible to prove to them that I'm worthy of another contract. But like I can't speak to that. But there's a couple dozen players in that situation on the team, and it might be a good message to just say like, hey, we do like some of you. We just got rid of the other ones.
Does goodwill like that matter to the players that aren't getting the goodwill? Like, obviously, the goodwill would make Courtland Sutton a lot happier and matter to him, but would that impact a Jonathan Cooper or other guys on the team, Todd?
Yeah, I think, to your point, I think it matters, but it only shows his face in contract time. Mm-hmm. So I think the day-to-day is going to feel good. Everybody, I mean, it's a job. You can't just be mad that one of your friends got canned, and for lack of a better phrase, because then you'll be canned because you are too busy sulking and you haven't put together any work. But when it does come time for contracts is when you start thinking like, is this where I want to be? Even if I have a good season or have a good 3 years through this contract, are they the kind of team that will get rid of me right after that? Mm-hmm. Are they the kind of team that holds on to players a little bit past their prime because of what players have done for them and the organization? You think about all those things, like once it's time to start negotiating your contract, and let's just say you have an offer very similar from another team that has a good track record of taking care of their guys, that may be the deciding factor for where you choose to end up playing.
Yep, definitely.
So let me throw some numbers out there and see if we can maybe find a little middle ground here to make Courtland Sutton happy and to keep him on the Broncos and to keep their number one receiver here. Courtland Sutton, the extension he got paid him an average of $15.2 million per season. We know he's making just under $14 million in cash this year. And, of course, Courtland cares about cash. He doesn't care about cap. I think that's a perspective you brought, Todd, which is absolutely right. Mm-hmm. Who says no if the Broncos bumped him up, or if there was a deal offered from one side or the other to give him $17.6 million in cash for this year and next year each year?
Broncos definitely say no.
Give him an extra $3.6 million?
Yeah. There's no reason for them to give him any more money. That's why they won't.
What about the goodwill that you were talking about?
They won't do it. Like, then they shouldn't do it. Like, they haven't over the barrel. But that's why, like, I don't think it's, I just think there's some aspects of it that's good business to like help those guys, but at the end of the day, there's just no reason for them to agree to anything, really. Unless it's some sort of extension where he keeps playing it's like a similarly low number, but I don't think there's a reason for Court. That's why I just don't think, like, again, there's like a 5 to 10% chance something actually happens.
I think we're in a very weird spot kind of as an organization because they're trying to make this ascension once again. And I don't know anybody who's on like a long-term contract.
No, because they haven't given out a contract since Russ got here.
Just
no,
Mike
I feel
McGlinchey.
like everybody, even the people we brought in this year, are on cheaper prove-it deals. Nobody's on there like, okay, we found our piece. We're going to lock this in for 5 years, make him one of the, let's just say, top 5, top 10 paid guys in the league. We're going to hold on to this piece. Everybody's on a prove-it deal, and they're trying to figure things out kind of on the run. So in that space, I don't know if they're thinking about locking anybody up. I think maybe because of what happened with Russell Wilson, plus the cap hit that they're kind of under right now, they're making everybody prove it. Even if you've been a good piece for the team, they're not in a rush to re-sign or renegotiate or even Pat Surtain. I think at normal times, let's lock them up now. Don't even question it, because if we wait for 2 years, the market's going to be stupid.
Yeah.
They would, you do that this off season. They haven't done that yet. And I think it's just the space that the organization is in right now, making everybody prove whether or not they're going to be here, in the next 3 years. I think everybody has to have kind of like their best years this year to be able to like say whether they're going to be here or not in 2 years.
Definitely.
It's such a good point, and I think Pat Surtain's the perfect example. Do we think that Pat Surtain's going to be here long term? Of course. Do the Broncos think he's going to be long term? I would really, really think so. That wouldn't make sense to move on from him right now. And I know Pat Surtain's side is ready to lock in a new contract and get that extension yesterday. Yet the Broncos, from my understanding, are just sitting and waiting. It's like, what? with your best player on the team, with the cornerback that's going to be the face of your franchise that you want for the next 15 years here? Like, what are we doing? It's clear that's just what the organization's doing, just waiting. So I agree with both of you that the Broncos are the ones saying no. But from my understanding, the Broncos, or Courtland Sutton, he saw Jerry Jeudy's 3-year extension for $52.5 million with $17.5 million per year and $41 million guaranteed. And courtside said, we want more than that. They're not looking for $30 million a year. I don't even think they're looking for $20 million a year. That's just me personally. I think they want a little more than Jerry Jeudy. And that's Jerry Jeudy's deal. 3 years, $52.5 million, $17.5 million per year. So I think Court's looking for $2.5–3 million raise per year. I don't know about the guarantees. I don't know if they're looking for an extension or just let's take these final 2 years of the deal and make it $17.6 million per season. But what's so interesting about this is Jerry Jeudy is the 25th highest paid wide receiver on average at $17.5 million. One notch below him is Courtland Sutton. They're at $15.2 million. So Court's really just trying to jump up over one player right now, and that's Jerry Jeudy, his old teammate. And there's courtside saying, look, this is the contract that's valid now is Jerry Jeudy's. And the Broncos are saying, we got you under contract for 2 more years. So I agree with you guys. Ultimately, I think nothing happens. And then this thing just ramps up at the end of the season. But I think that's what Courtland Sutton's looking for. He's looking for about $2.5 million more. And he's saying, look, all I'm asking is for $2.5 million more this year and next year. And the Broncos are saying, yeah, we have no reason to just hand you $2.5 million. And we mentioned this earlier. The only time I've ever seen the Broncos just hand someone money when they don't get anything returned in terms of more years on the deal or something like that is Chris Harris Jr. He's the only player that I've ever seen them do that with. And that happened, 5 years ago or something like that?
Different GM.
Yeah, different GM, exactly. Different ownership, different head coach, way different time. So I agree with you guys. I don't think anything's going to happen, but those are kind of the options, and I think that's the number that Courtland Sutton's looking at. We're going to have a pod poll on this over at DNVR _ Broncos on Twitter, where we want you guys to vote. What do you think is going to happen? We'll have that right after this show. Let's transition a little bit. We talked about Court a little bit yesterday, obviously a lot today, and we talked about the biggest takeaways from the Broncos offseason program. Yesterday, we got into kind of the big three, Sean Payton, Courtland Sutton, and the quarterback situation. Let's dive into kind of some of the smaller takeaways.
Real quick, before we get into that, I think the more interesting holdout for the Broncos isn't Courtland Sutton, it's Alvin Kamara. Because he's the one who, so he skipped the last minicamp practice for contract reasons. Sounds like the Saints aren't willing to give him a new deal. He's probably getting cut after this year just because of the way they structured his contract. And I was like, when you just look through,
Henry,
like,
I think this is a much bigger conversation. Let's dive into it tomorrow.
Oh no. We put that in the headline, all of a sudden we're the hot take people again. I'm a little bit worried. Oh, but yeah. Okay, we can save that for tomorrow.
I think that's a very legit. I don't think that's hot take. I think that's a very legitimate conversation to have.
Okay, if you're sure. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to go with minicamp. I mean, Jaquan McMillan is probably the other big story. He looks like a monster. And you remember, so he had never played in the nickel before he got to the Broncos. He was only a boundary corner in college. So it was actually a transition for him to move to nickel, which is kind of just strange to think about considering that at this point he seems like he's locked in there. But if you're talking about training or off-season winners, I would say that he has to be number 1 on the list. It's not even really close,
in terms of the outside or nickel?
Just in general. Just like in general, he's the big winner. Because I think you start thinking about him potentially playing outside.
And we've had this conversation a couple of times over the offseason, and we have seen him play a little bit on the outside. I do think he is solidifying himself as like a star nickel cornerback, though, and I think that's where he's going to be. But he's been fantastic wherever he's been on the field. And Todd, you know better than anyone just how important that nickel corner is because it's so tough to find. But when you find it and you have your Chris Harris Jr., boy, is it a valuable asset for the defense.
Yeah, they play a really big role in the run and the pass game. So when you have a good nickel corner, it's best to lock them up. Who knows if that'll happen, but it's always good to have a good one on your team.
And I think another in that secondary, Henry, another big winner, probably the second biggest winner, if not honestly the biggest winner, is PJ Locke. it is clear. Todd, you talked about how the Broncos have signed some guys back, but not to long-term deals. PJ Locke signed a 2-year, $7 million deal with the Broncos this offseason, with really only the first year guaranteed. That's still a prove-it deal.
Very much so.
They're not saying you're part of our long-term future, but PJ Locke looks like he's part of the Broncos' long-term future. 27 years old, and a guy who, on the field and in a leadership role, is getting the nod from Sean Payton of, you're our guy to replace Justin Simmons here. Now, obviously, we don't expect him to be, I think it's ridiculous to ask those expectations, but that's who Sean's pointing to replace Justin Simmons' leadership and that safety spot on the field is PJ Locke. It could have easily, Caden Stearns could have stepped in and taken that starting spot. And heading into training camp, I'm really comfortable saying that starting spot is already locked up by PJ.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's been playing well. When I look at the Broncos' strategy over the entire team, all the prove-it deals, I think for the long run, it sucks not knowing that guys will be here like long term. But over the long run, it's a smart way to play it, just to figure out what you want to do and how the team will progress. And if you look at the guys on the roster, I don't know if we have a lot of big name household names right now. So even if they do have a great year, let's say PJ has 6 picks, a couple of sacks, and just has a ball out year or 2 years, I still don't think they have to pay him top dollar like they would have if he was a first round draft pick. Or you think about guys on the edge, Jonathan Cooper, Baron Browning. Let's say they do prove it and have 11 sacks. I think the Broncos are still in a good position where you can get even those guys at a discount instead of going and trying to get a Myles Garrett or TJ Watt where you're going to have to pay top dollar right off the bat. But in regards to PJ, I think he is locking up the safety position. And he does look like a seasoned veteran out there. He is in year 5.
Yep.
So he's not a young
Right.
buck anymore,
Right.
but definitely looks good out there.
Yeah, and I think with PJ, another big takeaway is that they just don't have much speed on defense. Like, this is a really slow defense on paper. Like, when you start from the back, like Brandon Jones, he's like, he's what you're looking for in terms of like physical traits at safety. PJ Locke, a little bit slower player. Jaquan McMillan, a little bit slower. Levi Wallace, I think as of now, he'd probably be my starter. He's a little bit slower. The linebackers with Jonas Griffith and Alex Singleton, I think Singleton doesn't get enough credit for his speed, but it certainly isn't like plus speed for a linebacker. It's not Devin Bush. And same thing with Jonas. So I think that's another just interesting piece, because I think that kind of is part of what bit them in the ass against the Dolphins.
100%.
There were the issues with the running game, but when they just played the team that was built on speed, they weren't able to keep up. And the way that this defense is built now, I'm curious if you agree, Todd, and maybe it changes a little bit if it's Riley at corner, but even then, you don't have plus speed at very many spots. Is that overrated or
It's not overrated because, speed kills. I think that's
does kill.
that's a true statement.
Yeah.
Speed puts up 70.
But if you can get guys to play assignment sound, I think you can lessen the impact of speed. I think you still be a good defense. Okay. Even against the Dolphins, speed killed, but speed killed when somebody didn't do their job, and then you were able to see that speed come into play. But if everything is kind of kept in close and we can keep it tight and keep guys in a box, nobody has the ability to kind of get out to these 10-plus yard runs or catch after runs where you really are able to use the speed. If we can just keep it tight, play everything top down, and keep them kind of in this box, then we can nullify the speed that they have. So if that's the Broncos' game plan, then I think there's a way for you still to be a good defense without having elite speed all over the place, because you can have fast guys, but even if fast guys are not assignment sound, then their speed is all for nothing. So I think it's all about being very, very detail-oriented with this defense so they can attack and play downhill, and hopefully they're not chasing all game.
And I guess a big thing with that, Todd, is that going into the second year of a defense, you should be a lot more defensive sound, and so that gives me encouragement that they're in their second year and kept the continuity there. But Henry, when you say that, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but it scares the hell out of me because what our offense is trying to do now, they're trying to become faster. They see the Dolphins, they see some of the weapons that the Chiefs have had, and it's just all about speed. Tyreek Hill, both Chiefs and Dolphins, and they just want NFL offenses are trying to go fast. If you don't have that on defense, I got to say that scares me. And all of my notes about this offseason for the defensive side we're positive. I think the defensive line is really improved. But if you match up with the team that's just so fast and you're not fast, that scares me.
Yeah. Well, and the good news is you don't play like the Dolphins for one, but like the Eagles or the other very speed-oriented team that I can think of, like the 49ers. The Broncos' schedule isn't filled with speed. The Seahawks, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett at this point probably doesn't fit that category. And then you got Kenneth Walker in the backfield who has to be like, that doesn't scare me from that perspective. Really, the only team that does is the Ravens. And maybe you can throw the Bengals in there too, just like what they kind of do on the boundaries. But I don't look at them as like a team that's built on speed as much as they're just a good team.
Jets? They're fast.
I don't think so.
Running
Like, I
back's
mean,
fast.
not
Garrett
notably.
Wilson.
Garrett Wilson's pretty fast. Like, what, they have MVS still as their number 2?
I think so, yep. Isn't he supposed to be a burner?
He's fast, but like, if you just sit back and make him win underneath, he's not going to be able to do it. You know,
Falcons, maybe?
That's what they have to do. Tackle the catch. You don't have to be an all-pro corner or be an all-pro safety and bat every ball, every game. There's certain games where guys do have speed, and you got to respect it. And so how you do that is just play them top down, to catch the ball, tackle it, and we'll live to fight another day.
Exactly.
And so I think there's ways around it.
I just think more than anything, it limits what you can do. I think that, you know, there's some defenses that can go out there and run anything and it'll work. Like if you want to go zero coverage, you put Pat on whoever the number 1 is. And after that, like, it kind of gets a little bit scary. Like if it's Levi Wallace, if it's Riley Moss too, I guess, just because you haven't seen him, because you got that guy in the number 2, you got Jaquan defending in number 3. So there's some things that will make me nervous.
But I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I think there's pieces and caveats to every defense. Like specifically, if we're in cover 0, we're blitzing.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have 5 seconds.
That's true.
If we're playing a fast receiver, he shouldn't have 4 seconds to get down the field on me. That ball better come out now. And especially we talk about the D-line. I think the D-line is playing bully ball. So I think they're going to bully a lot of people, and hopefully they don't give a quarterback that much time. Now, if we're in a traditional one-on-one, cover 1, okay, now we have a safety deep. Now you pay everything underneath, everything over the top. Brandon Jones, P.J. Locke, come help us.
Yep.
That's where we need some love. Like, I think that there's ways to get around it, even though we're not the fastest. We don't have to, like, be scared of teams that have speed as long as we just play the defense. Don't try to be a superhero. And I think that's what was happening is keep going back to that Miami Dolphins game. Yes, they have speed, but if you look at the tape, guys are out of place more so than they're just getting burned. You know what I'm saying? I never looked at the tape and just saw, even a play where like Tyreek Hill is completely wide open. He didn't kill somebody one-on-one with his speed. A safety made a wrong read and he's in a complete wrong. If the safety's in his position, he's going to run. Tyreek Hill is running to him. Like, he doesn't even have to move on the play. So no speed, would be lost with him trying to catch up to Tyreek Hill. It's all about playing the defense. And I think that's what, like you said, going into year 2, they should be much better. I do think now there's a lot of guys, Jonas Griffith, Brandon Jones, a lot of the front 7, Riley Moss, whoever that secondary corner is that didn't play last year, that are going to have a little bit of a learning curve, but hopefully the guys that did play can bring them along.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. The more I think about it, the more I think the defensive line is going to be, like, you just need them to be productive, because I think it's tough to justify blitzing. And even if they don't give you any pass rush, if they can just be solid in the run game, and you can go into every game every week thinking like, hey, we've got the Ravens with Derrick Henry this week. It's a terrible matchup, but we don't need to go out of our way to feel like we have a chance at slowing him down. Like, we can go out there, play our base defense, and maybe we give up 4 or 5 yards of carry, but we don't need to just send extra bodies that way, like load the box. And maybe that's optimistic, but I think that if they can hold their own, you can kind of build off of that moving backwards.
Totally agree. Isn't that where it all starts up front?
Absolutely. And think about Vance Joseph's defense. Like, you got to be good for a second down, but third down is super exotic.
Yeah.
We talked about what's the nickel? What's his name?
Jaquan.
All of his sacks came on plays where people forgot about him blitzing.
Yep.
Vance Joseph is going to have 8 guys lined up on the line and pick and choose the 5 you want to block, and you won't know who's coming. Yep. So it's like, I think that's another way you adapt to our speed, is that if we can just get you to block our 5 slowest and we can somehow wrap our
that.
3
Yeah.
fastest, then it's like, okay, we got you. Like,
Yep.
Speaking of
It's a game.
speed, we got to run out of here.
Yes.
But
oh shoot.
we're doing another show in 15 minutes.
We
So
are.
stay tuned. If you're listening on the podcast side, we're going to be dropping another show soon. And if you're rocking with us on YouTube, just 15 minutes away from another show. We'll see you then.
We all silly like the mayor.